The clinking of silverware and the murmur of laughter filled the room, a symphony of sounds that usually brought comfort. But tonight, the air crackled with tension, thick enough to cut. I stood at the bar cart, pouring myself another whiskey, trying to drown out the chatter of our guests. The laughter felt hollow, like a distant echo that mocked the unease coursing through me. "David, are you going to join us?" Pam's voice rang out, sharp and demanding, pulling me back into the chaos of our dinner party. Her smile was bright, too bright, like a lighthouse guiding ships into a storm. I forced a grin, but it felt more like a grimace. "I'm coming," I replied, my voice low. I set down the glass, feeling the weight of it, the warmth of the whiskey battling the chill creeping into my bones. I turned to face our guests, a mix of friends and colleagues, all of whom seemed blissfully unaware of the storm brewing between Pam and me. "Let's toast," Pam exclaimed, raising her glass high. The crystal caught the light, refracting it into 1,000 little stars. "To friends, and love, and honesty." She looked straight at me, her gaze unyielding, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "To honesty," I echoed, though the word tasted bitter on my tongue. I clinked my glass against hers, and the hollow sound rang in my ears. I could feel the eyes of our guests on me, curious and expectant. As the evening wore on, I tried to engage in the conversations, but my mind was elsewhere, trapped in a loop of anxious thoughts. What was she planning? I knew Pam well enough to understand that her laughter, her flirtation with the other guests, was a facade, a mask for something darker. "David, stop brooding," she said suddenly, her voice cutting through my thoughts. "You're ruining the mood." "I'm fine," I said, perhaps too quickly. The truth was, I wasn't fine. I was a coiled spring, ready to snap. The tension in the room shifted sharply as Pam stood and clinked her glass again, this time with an urgency that sent a ripple of anticipation through the air. "I have something to say," she announced, her tone playful yet serious. I felt my heart race. What was coming next? "I've been keeping a secret," she continued, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "But tonight, I think it's time to share it. I'm not sure how to put this delicately, so I'll just say it, I've been seeing someone else." The room fell silent, the laughter and chatter evaporating like steam on a cold night. My breath hitched in my throat. I glanced at our guests, their eyes wide, mouths agape. "Pam, what are you?" I started, but she waved her hand dismissively. "Let me finish, David. You deserve to hear it all." She leaned against the table, a smirk playing on her lips. "I've been with Mark for 6 months now. He's everything you're not." A collective gasp swept through the room, and I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. I wanted to disappear, to sink into the plush carpet beneath my feet. The embarrassment seeped into my bones, and I could feel the judgment of our friends puncturing the air like arrows. "Wow, Pam. That's bold," one of our guests stammered, trying to break the tension. "Bold?" Pam laughed, a cruel sound that echoed in my ears. "It's about time I said it. I deserve to be happy, don't you think?" Every word felt like a dagger, twisting deeper into my gut. I glanced at Mark, her lover, the smug bastard who wore an expression of triumph. He leaned casually against the wall, arms crossed, a self-satisfied grin plastered on his face. "Why would you do this here?" I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because I wanted everyone to know," she replied, her eyes gleaming with a manic fire. "You can't keep the truth hidden, David. It's liberating to finally be honest." "Honest?" I spat, the anger bubbling to the surface. "This isn't honesty, this is humiliation." "Maybe it's both," she shot back, undeterred. "You've been so absorbed in your work, neglecting everything else. I needed someone who sees me, who appreciates me for who I am." "Who you are?" I shook my head, incredulous. "You mean who you pretend to be?" The guests shifted awkwardly, their eyes bouncing between us, the tension thick enough to slice through. I could see the whispers beginning, the judgment swirling like a storm cloud overhead. "David, please," Pam said, her voice suddenly softer, almost pleading. "I didn't want it to come to this, but Then why did you? I interrupted. Why now? Why here? Because, she paused, her bravado faltering for just a moment, I wanted you to feel how I felt for all those years. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. I felt the swell of pain and anger battling for dominance inside me. You think this is going to hurt me? You think I'm going to crumble? Pam's smile faded, replaced by something darker, a flicker of uncertainty. I just wanted freedom, David. You made me feel trapped. Trapped? I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and discordant. You're the one who trapped yourself in this lie. Before she could respond, I turned and walked out of the room, the laughter and whispers following me like a dark shadow. I needed space to breathe, to think. I stepped into the cool night air, the stars twinkling above, seemingly indifferent to the chaos I was leaving behind. As I paced the patio, my heart raced. The reality of Pam's betrayal washed over me like a cold wave. I could feel the anger simmering just below the surface, a potent mix of rage and humiliation. I had to regroup, to find a way to reclaim my life. But how? I glanced back at the house, the laughter now a distant echo. I could see Pam through the window, a queen in her own chaotic court, reveling in the attention her revelation had garnered. And there was Mark, leaning in close, whispering sweet nothings into her ear. Suddenly, I felt a surge of determination. I wouldn't let her define me. I wouldn't be the victim of her twisted game. I fished my phone from my pocket, my fingers trembling as I typed a message to my lawyer. We need to talk. Urgent. The night air was crisp as I walked away from the house, the streetlights flickering like fireflies in the darkness. I needed a plan, a way to expose the cracks in our marriage, to reveal the truth about Pam's manipulations. The bar down the street was dimly lit, a cozy spot where I had often found solace. Tonight, it felt like a refuge from the chaos of my life. I pushed through the door, the familiar scent of whiskey and stale beer wrapping around me like a comforting blanket. I settled into a booth in the corner, the soft hum of conversation swirling around me. The bartender, an older man with a knowing smile, approached. The usual? Yeah, I replied, my voice low. As I sipped my drink, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on me. It was a small town, and news traveled fast. I could already imagine the gossip spreading, the whispers of my humiliation echoing through every social circle. Hey, you okay? A voice interrupted my thoughts. I looked up to see an old friend, Sarah, sliding into the booth across from me. You look like you've seen a ghost. More like I've been haunted, I muttered, taking another gulp of whiskey. What happened? Her brow furrowed with concern. I hesitated, the words heavy on my tongue. Pam, she revealed her affair. In front of everyone. Oh, David, I'm so sorry. Her eyes widened. That's awful. It was a spectacle, I said bitterly, the anger bubbling back to the surface. And now I'm left to pick up the pieces. Are you going to confront her? I took a deep breath, the weight of the question settling heavily in the air. I need to do more than confront her. I need to take control of this situation before it spirals completely out of hand. David, you're a good man. You don't deserve this. I know, I replied, my voice low. But that doesn't change what's happened. I need to figure out my next steps. As the night wore on, I plotted my course. I couldn't let Pam and Mark win. They thought this was a game, a chance to humiliate me and bask in the aftermath of their betrayal. I would turn the tables. When I finally stumbled out of the bar, the moon hung high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over everything. I felt a strange sense of clarity washing over me. I would expose Pam for who she really was, not just to our friends, but to everyone who had ever admired her carefully crafted image. I reached for my phone again, sending a message to a few close friends, inviting them to meet me at my place. I needed allies, people who would stand with me in the storm that was about to break. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Karen who had seen her share of messy divorces. As I detailed Pam's betrayal, her expression shifted from sympathy to determination. This isn't just about your marriage, David. It's about your reputation, your future. We can use her actions against her. I nodded, a sense of empowerment blooming inside me. I want to expose her. I want everyone to see her for who she really is. Karen leaned back in her chair, her gaze piercing. Then we'll gather evidence. Emails, texts, anything we can use. It's time to turn the tables. Over the next few days, I threw myself into the plan. I contacted friends who had witnessed Pam's manipulations, those who had seen her flirt with Mark long before the affair was revealed. I gathered evidence, piecing together the timeline of her betrayal like a detective on a case. As I worked, I felt the weight of humiliation slowly lift, replaced by a growing sense of purpose. I was no longer the victim, I was the one in control. When the day finally came to confront Pam again, I felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. I invited her to meet me at a local CAF, the same one where we had shared countless happy moments. I arrived early, my palms sweaty as I waited for her to arrive. The CAF buzzed with chatter, but it felt distant, like white noise in my mind. I glanced at the door every time it swung open, my heart racing with every passing moment. When she finally walked in, a smile plastered on her face, I felt a surge of anger. How could she act so nonchalant after everything? David! I'm so glad we could meet, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Let's cut the crap, Pam. My voice was steady, firm. I know about Mark. I know everything. Her smile faltered, just for a moment. What do you mean? I've gathered evidence of your affair. I've spoken to our friends. They know what you've done. David, Save it, I interrupted, my heart pounding. I'm done being the butt of your joke. I won't let you spin this any longer. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of panic crossing her features. You wouldn't dare. Oh, I would, I replied, my voice low and steady. I'm taking control of this narrative. You wanted to humiliate me? How about I show everyone who you really are? David, please, don't do this. Her voice was laced with desperation now. It's too late for please. You made your choice. As I left the CAF, I felt lighter, unburdened by the weight of her betrayal. I had taken my stand, and I was ready to fight back. The fallout was swift and brutal. I watched as Pam's carefully constructed facade began to crumble, friends turning against her as they learned the truth. The gossip spread like wildfire, and I felt a sense of vindication with each whispered conversation I overheard. Every time I saw Pam's name trending on social media, my heart swelled with a mix of satisfaction and relief. She had played her hand, and now it was my turn to show the world the truth. But as the days turned into weeks, I realized it wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life, finding my footing after the storm. I spent time with friends who supported me, who reminded me of my worth, and slowly, I started to heal. One evening, as I sat at my kitchen table, a glass of whiskey in hand, I reflected on everything that had happened. I had faced humiliation, betrayal, and the judgment of our peers, but I had emerged stronger. I picked up my phone and sent a message to Sarah, inviting her over. She had been a constant source of support, and I wanted to thank her for standing by me through it all. When she arrived, I poured us both a drink, and we settled onto the couch, the warmth of friendship enveloping us. You've come a long way, David, she said, a proud smile on her face. I couldn't have done it without you, I replied, my heart swelling with gratitude. As we talked and laughed, I felt a sense of hope blossom inside me. I was ready to build a new life, one free from the shadows of Pam's betrayal. The cost of her actions had been high, but I was determined to rise from the ashes, stronger and more resilient than ever.